Lieutenant Marcus Mark Holden sat alone in the cramped briefing bay, the cold glow of the holomap reflecting on his nervous eyes. All around him, Alpha Squad busied themselves checking weapons, calibrating rifles, and exchanging confident banter. He couldn't tell if the slight tremor in his gloves was from the sub-zero temperature of Oberon 3's atmosphere or the weight of their gazes. Ever since graduation, Mark had carried the unwelcome title of unit liability. He was too slight for field work, too slow on the drills, and when it came to marksmanship, his best shots were still only adequate. A ripple of static interrupted his thoughts as Captain Lin's voice filled the room, proceeding with standard recon insertion. Remember, hostile activity is likely, but priority 1 is intel and alien tech recovery. Squad moves out in 5. Behind her, the frosted holomap pulsed, showing jagged mountain ranges carved by ancient ice eruptions and valleys shrouded in perpetual blizzard. The drop site lay on the rim of the Voxus chasm, a trench so deep it swallowed the sun. Mark's chest tightened. In simulations, he had repeatedly lagged behind during infiltration drills, the panic in his own breathing echoing across the comms. His squadmates never said it, but he felt the silent countdown. Day 2 weak, Day 5 decoy, Day 7 irrelevant. Captain Lin moved among them with practiced confidence, Mariana adjusting her optical sight, Kane running a sequence on his pulse rifle, and Mark felt more like a shadow than a soldier. He adjusted the strap on his pack, checking familiar items, a spare energizer pack, a micro-locksmith kit, and the worn holo image of his younger sister, safe home on New Terra. Their world depended on advanced power cells harvested from alien ruins, but Oberon 3's uncharted crashes held the promise of breakthroughs. This mission could turn the tide of the energy crisis. But Mark's part felt almost ceremonial. Follow orders. Keep pace, don't break. Holden, Reyes Alpha Squad's xenobiologist, called softly. As she approached, she crouched and studied his armor plating. Your suit seal seems loose here. Let me patch it before we launch. She tapped a panel, and Mark felt a brief jolt of gratitude. At least one person assumed he was useful. Thanks, he managed. Had a rough day in prep. Reyes nodded, voice low. Every mission has its variables. Your skill with diagnostics could save us if comms go down. It was a compliment, but it felt wrapped in pity. Mark forced a smile. I'll do my best. Moments later, they filed into the insertion pod. The hull thrummed as the seal locked. Mark braced himself against the bench. Through the porthole, the crew chief gave them a thumbs up, and the pod launched. Inside the cabin, the air shimmered with hydraulic hiss and distant thunder. Oberon 3's perpetual storm. Mark swallowed. The pod dove through swirling clouds, buffeted by high-velocity winds, and then the world went white as ice and snow enveloped them. When the pod's retrothrusters silenced, they touched down on a plateau overlooking the crash site, snow crunching under boot. Alpha Squad stepped onto the frozen ground. The temperature was well below freezing, and their breath fogged instantly. Mark followed Mariana to the edge of the cliff. Below, in the chasm's heart, lay the uncharted vessel, its silhouette jagged, with oars melted into bizarre formations by atmospheric friction. Pulsing lights glowed under the ice, beckoning them like the eye of some cosmic leviathan. Captain Lin's voice crackled through comms. Squad, move out. Mark, you're on point with Reyes. Recon the perimeter and look for life signs. Kane, Mariana, stay on overwatch. No margin for error. Mark inhaled, steeling himself, and edged forward, Reyes at his side. Their footfalls echoed in the frozen winds as they descended the chasm wall via grappler cables. Mark's knuckles whitened around the rail. Every tremor of the suspended cable echoed in his gut. 2/3 down, his cable jolted against ice. A grinding screech. He froze to slow. But Reyes reached out, steadying him. Keep moving, she urged. At the base, they crouched behind a shard of metallic wreckage. Reyes scanned with her portable spectrometer. Energy readings off the charts. She murmured, voice awed. Whatever's inside is still alive, or recently was. Mark's heart pounded. Alive. Alien life forms were the holy grail for Xenotech. Their discovery here could redefine biology. Power generation, even weaponry. Mark crept forward, rifle At the ready, the wreck's hull was pierced by a 10-meter-long fissure, a jagged wound in the metal. Through the crack, he glimpsed luminescent veins crisscrossing the inner shell, throbbing like colossal veins. A low hum echoed through the snow, resonating in his chest. He raised the rifle, finger steady on the trigger, but he hesitated, fear twisted in his mind. What if he was too late? What if he failed? A fresh tremor rocked the vessel. Mark stumbled. Rifle clattering. Reyes grabbed it. "Hold tight," she whispered. The hum intensified, then cut out. Silence. Mark's pulse felt deafening. He looked at Reyes. Her eyes shone not with contempt, but with raw excitement. "This is it, Marcus," she said, resting a steady hand on his shoulder. "Whatever happens next, you're part of this. Don't think of yourself as the weakest. Think of yourself as the first." Mark closed his eyes, exhaled slowly, and whispered to himself, "I won't be left behind." With that, he stepped toward the fissure, toward the unknown heart of the alien vessel. The wound in the hull yawned before them like the gullet of a sleeping beast. Lieutenant Mark Holden and Dr. Eleanor Reyes pressed their visors to the jagged metal, scanning every inch for movement. The rest of Alpha's squad held position around the perimeter. Mariana perched on an icy outcrop with her rifle. Kane crouched beside her, demolitions pack ready. Mark's breath came in shallow puffs, a thin mist disappearing into the chasm's gloom. Reyes activated her spectrometer. Its needle spun wildly, green and yellow arcs flickering faster than the eye could follow. "The stasis field generators are offline," she murmured. "Whatever's inside is no longer contained." She waved Mark closer. "Help me rig a secondary perimeter. I want to isolate any biosignature spikes before we breach." Mark lifted an electroprobe from his pack, the barrel lined with delicate circuitry Reyes had calibrated herself. By his touch, it hummed to life. Together they placed 3 probes in a triangle around the fissure. The field readings stabilized. No life sign outside the hull, but inside, fluctuations pulsed like a heartbeat, sporadic, irregular, alive. "Okay," Reyes said, voice trembling with excitement. "We goin', but we move slow." Mark swallowed, loading a low-intensity stunner into his rifle. He had barely practiced with the weapon, but he'd seen Reyes knock out a simulated alien specimen in training. "Ready," he said, and tapped his helmet mic. "Alpha squad, eyes on me." "We enter on my mark." Captain Lin's voice crackled. "Back, copy that. Overwatch on you. Kane, watch our 6. Mariana, comms relay. You're clear." Mark took a deep breath and kicked away snow to create a foothold. He squeezed through the jagged aperture, half-crouched, rifle raised. The interior corridor was narrow, its walls slick with an iridescent film that pulsed in rhythm with the readings. The floor sloped downward, drawing them deeper. A phosphorescent glow bled from cracks in the ceiling, illuminating shapes too abstract to interpret geometric runes, or perhaps the scars of impact. Reyes trailed behind, carrying a data uplink module. "If we can hack the mainframe, we might regain partial control," she said, voice low. Her boots made no sound on the metal plating, but Mark heard the soft thrum of the vessel's dormant systems. Waking dot, they reached an intersection chamber, domed, vast, capped by a crystalline sphere hovering mid-air. Tendrils of light coiled within it, flowing like liquid. Mark's HUD flagged biosignature levels off the charts. The orb's surface fractured with tiny fissures, and a low humming resonated through Mark's bones. "Stay back," Reyes warned, but Mark felt compelled forward. Something about that pulsating core called to him, a resonance that felt familiar. He raised the stunner, but didn't fire. A sliver of light snapped outward as the sphere shattered. Crystal shards spat across the chamber, clattering against the floor. Before Mark could dive for cover, a shape leapt free, an amorphous, translucent form, tendrils writhing like living mercury. It coalesced mid-air, zeroing in on Mark's outstretched hand. "Marcus, no," Reyes cried. But it was too late. The creature struck, lashing across his forearm. A searing jolt shot through his nerves, sharp as lightning. Mark staggered, but did not cry out. He merely watched in stunned awe as the alien mass retracted, dissolving into the synthetic fibers of his suit and seeping beneath his skin. In shimmering rivulets, Mark's vision wavered, color draining from his senses. Reyes lunged, but the creature pulsed within him, as if anchoring itself to his heartbeat. She knelt beside him, placing a hand on his shoulder. Mark, can you hear me?" He blinked, sight returning in shards of clarity. His arm throbbed, yet the pain was not his alone. It was the parasite's hunger, a craving for energy and information he couldn't yet define. He tried to speak, but all that emerged was a rasp. It's inside me." Reyes' eyes brimmed with awe and fear. "We need to secure him. Captain, we've got a breach, biological and neurological. Our tech won't hold him long. Extraction now." Through the open hatch, Mariana's voice crackled. "We're inbound. Tell us when you're clear." Kane ready to tether line for winch extraction. Reyes snapped a small containment coil onto Mark's wrist and improvised suppressor to dampen psionic feedback as much as possible. Mark flexed his fingers. The lights within the chamber flickered, then stabilized. The parasite was alive, symbiotic, and it had chosen him alone. As the line hummed, Mark locked eyes with Reyes. He saw her unspoken question. "What have we unleashed?" He could only shoulder himself upright, nod once, and let the squad haul him away from the vessel's glowing heart. Behind him, the alien ship pulsed with silent power, its guardian now bound to the weakest soldier in the unit. And Mark knew, even as the chasm swallowed their departure, that nothing would ever be the same again. Lieutenant Mark Holden awoke in the biocontainment ward of the Valkyria-class transport, his vision blurred by antiseptic glare and the low hum of life support. The pain in his arm had receded to a dull throb replaced by something else, a pulsing rhythm he could feel in every vein. He flexed his fingers, and a surge of power rippled through the ward's magnetic locks. The door shuddered, but held. Mark sat up, alarmed, before he could assess further. The ward's overhead speakers crackled. "Lieutenant Holden." Dr. Reyes' voice trembled with relief and curiosity. "You're conscious? How do you feel?" "Different," Mark rasped, eyes settling on the containment coil around his wrist. He lifted it, studying the tiny filaments glowing faintly blue. "What did that thing do to me?" Reyes entered, datapad in hand. Her face was pale but alight with excitement. "The parasite has fused with your neural cortex. We're seeing septic pathways rewiring, almost like it's creating a direct interface between your mind and tech." She swiped through schematics. "Energy readings from your biofield show you're now a conduit. Think of yourself as part human, part living circuit." Mark's heart pounded at her words. A conduit for what? Information, energy. Control. Reyes tapped a waveform. "See the spike? When you moved your hand, you instinctively reached out to the ward's systems. You can manipulate electronics doors, displays, power conduits without input devices. And your strength," she paused, "your muscle fibers are augmented. You registered a 60% increase in output during stress tests." He stood, slowly, wary. Reyes stepped back as the ward's lighting dimmed on command without anyone touching a switch. Mariana and Kane burst in moments later, concern etched on their faces. "Captain wants a status report," Kane panted. "But first." Mariana held up a holoprojector. "Test it." On her nod, Mark approached the device. He reached out, palm outstretched. The projector flickered to life, cycling through classified schematics of Oberonthri's crashed vessel. He twisted his wrist subtly, and the holo image rotated, zoomed, then split into diagnostic overlays. Reyes and the squad stared, mouths agape. "It's seamless." Mariana whispered, "You're hacking with your thoughts." Mark flexed again, and the ward's med scanner pulsed rhythmically to his heartbeat. A low murmur trailed the group. Captain Lin's voice came over comms. "Report." Mark drew a steadying breath. "The parasite has bonded exclusively with me. I can control tech, access data streams, and augment my own physiology. I'm operational and ready for orders." A tense silence followed. Then Lin responded, voice measured but firm. "Understood. You'll lead the next recon sweep. But Holden, be cautious. We don't know its limits." As Reyes helped him refasten the containment coil, Mark felt the parasite pulse beneath his skin, a subtle, living thumb attuned to his thoughts. He closed his eyes, mindful of the power coursing through him. The squad's expectations had shifted overnight from liability to linchpin. But Mark was no hero. He was a vessel, and the creature within waited patiently for its moment. He opened his eyes, resolve hardening. Let's find out what it really wants. With that, Alpha Squad prepared to plunge once more into the heart of the alien wreck, this time led by the one they once called weakest. The transport's engines rumbled beneath Mark as the Valkyria-class ship descended toward the mining moon of Vesper 9. Through the viewport, the surface glinted with rusted ore refineries and scattered outposts. Intelligence reports had flagged an illicit salvage operation targeting Xenotech ruins, an operation that threatened to unleash the same alien horrors they'd just survived. Mark stood at the head of Alpha's squad in the drop bay. Reyes strapped on her Xeno sampler pack, Kane hefted a concussive rifle, and Mariana calibrated her optical ray. Captain Lin regarded Mark with guarded trust. "Remember your limits," she said. "Control, Holden, keep us in one piece." He nodded, fingers drifting over the containment coil. The Parasite pulsed in response, a silent challenge. The drop pod pierced Vesper's thin atmosphere, landing in a wind-whipped crater outside Outpost Meridian. The scavengers' black market mercenaries in scavenged armor were already at work, their heavy drills burrowing into an ancient temple's outer wall. Sparks flew as metal met mineral, and unearthly glyphs glowed beneath the drilling heads. "On my go," Mark murmured. He raised his hand. With a thought, the scavengers' calm's chatter went silent. The drills sputtered, then died. Floodlights overhead flickered, weapons locked in place, barrels grinding as their mechanisms seized. On signal, Reyes and Kane sprinted forward, subduing the stunned Marks, while Mariana covered their advance dot at the temple entrance. Mark paused. Through the yawning archway, he saw the alien glyph etched in crystal and operable by psionic resonance. "It's a control interface," Reyes breathed. "They're close to activating something." Mark stepped forward, hand brushing the carvings. A surge of energy shot through him, translating the glyphs into visions, an immense energy core, buried beneath the temple, powered by the same parasite's life force. If activated, it would unleash a cataclysmic pulse across Vesper 9, ripping the moon and possibly the sector apart. He staggered back. "They're about to detonate the core." Kane cut in, fanning out his scan. "We've got less than 2 minutes before the reactor goes critical." Reyes touched Mark's arm. "You can stop it." "Interface with the glyphs," Mark swallowed, stepping back to the interface. He focused, willing the parasite's psionic tendrils to sync with the crystal. "Network." The glyphs flared, responding to his mental command. Indicators shifted from red to amber, then to green, but alarms blared as the reactor's override had been locked by the scavengers. "Cyberdeck." Outside, the mercenary boss barked, "Get him." Guns opened fire. Bullets ricocheted off the temple wall. Mark felt the parasite's panic, energy fleeing, systems failing. He slammed his palm onto the central glyph, a titanic effort. His vision swam as the interface fought back, pushing back the alien code. Mariana's rifle barked overhead, picking off attackers. Kane hurled an EMP grenade that knocked out scavenger drones. Reyes fired a sedative darts, clearing the courtyard. Inside the interface, Mark's mind burned with light. Symbols cascaded through his consciousness. He channeled the parasite's resonance, forging a lockout sequence that reversed the core's countdown. With a final mental keystroke, the glyphs dimmed, and the temple fell silent. Moments later, the ground shuddered as the core's power receded. Outside, the squad converged on Mark's position. He sagged against the wall, breathing hard. Blood trickling from a split lip, Reyes knelt, checking his vitals. "You did it," she whispered. "You saved us." Mark managed a half smile. The parasite's pulse beneath his skin had subsided to a gentle thrum, calm, obedient. But in his mind, he felt its watchful presence. Captain Lin stepped forward, placing a hand on Mark's shoulder. "Alpha Squad stands," she said, voice proud, "because of you." Mark glanced at the sealed temple doors. The world had shifted on its axis. Once the weakest link, he was now the linchpin between life and oblivion. The parasite had bonded with him, but in that crucible of battle, they had learned to work as one. As transport shuttles lifted them back to orbit, Mark looked out at the moon's scarred surface. Ahead lay uncharted frontiers, alien enigmas, and the promise of discovery and danger. Beside him, the Parasite pulsed softly, a reminder that strength often emerges from the most unlikely vessels. And together, they would face whatever the stars had in store.